Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the LionSide Chat. We will get started in about 2 minutes. Please go ahead and make sure your sound is enabled. We will be disabling chat for this opportunity today, but we will look forward to receiving your questions during our Q&A session. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Penn State Berks LionSide Chats. My name is Dawn Pfeiffer-Wrights, and I'll be moderating this session today. I am one of the moderators for the LionSide Chats alongside my co-presenters, Sonia Delaquito and Ryan Hassler. And today we are excited because we're bringing in another repeat LionSide Chatter with Miss Alexa Hodge joining us. So come on in and welcome to our campus. We're glad that you can join us today. A couple of things. We won't be utilizing the chat feature, but we will be utilizing the Q&A. So please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the chat, and we will get to the questions at the end. At the end of our presentation, we will have a discussion with those Q&As with our two presenters. We'll also be recording today's session, and this will be available in the archive on the LionSide Chat website for your future viewing. At the end of this session, also, there will be an opportunity for you to click through a survey, which is really important information for all of us as we are figuring out other sessions that we can offer and just get some feedback from you. So without any further ado, I welcome you to We Are Successful Learning Strategies and Resources. Today's chat is being presented by Sonia Delaquito and Alexa Hodge. Both of these wonderful women are fantastic members of our Penn State Berks community, and they bring lots and lots of enthusiasm and energy and student engagement and passion to our campus, and for that I really appreciate them. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen and I will welcome Sonia and Alexa to share theirs.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I'm going to go ahead and get us started here.
You are welcome, and I will be here to help facilitate Q&A at the end.
Wonderful.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As Professor Wright stated, my name is Alexa Hodge. I am the coordinator of Student Support Services here at the Penn State Berks campus, and I will be presenting with the lovely Miss. That's your
Sonia Delaquito. I'm the coordinator of the Learning Center here at Penn State Berks.
Today, we're here to talk with you about learning strategies and resources because we are
successful.
We wanted to start this session by giving you just a little bit of a taste of our personalities. We can be a little bit silly, but we're also very knowledgeable. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I heard a student say in class on Tuesday to a peer, listen, you're going to need to start drinking coffee because you're in college and you've got stuff to do. So what better way to start this session than to talk about making coffee? So we understand that there are multiple ways to make coffee. You can use a French press, a percolator, that's my mom's favorite way, K-cup, a brewer, or maybe you don't make your own coffee at all. Maybe you just go to your favorite coffee shop and buy it there. You can have your coffee so many ways, iced, hot, cream. You can have sugar, you can have flavoring, you can drink it black, right? The point is that there is no one type of coffee that's going to suit every single person. Just like in this presentation, there is not everything that we're going to talk about is going to suit your style or suit your needs, but we are going to be providing you with the essentials to being successful in college. So with that said, like making coffee, there's some basic things that you need. Basic things that you have to have in order to have an enjoyable cup of coffee. You're going to need some sort of machine to make the coffee. You need coffee, the grounds or the beans, water, filtering, a heating system, and something to drink from, right? And so we want you to think about this session that way too. You don't have to make your coffee or make your college experience the same as the person next to you, but there are some basics, and that's what we hope to provide you with today. So I will give it over to Sonia.
So absolutely, right? If any of those one things aren't part of the equation, you have a really bad result, okay? So what's brewing in today's session, we want to talk about having some empowerment through accountability. Basically, like, what are the things that you really need to be mindful of as your student? And you're going to see the bulk of our presentation really hovers on this most important number one point of the puzzle, okay? Then we're going to talk about developing our supportive network, okay? You know the people that are positive influences on you, and we really want you to focus on fostering those relationships and be mindful about the fact that you need to subscribe to what our values are here at Penn State, and maybe start to think about what your own are, as well as making sure that, you know, we're here for you. What are the resources and how can you take advantage of them now that you're here at Penn State Berks and then even beyond our campus?
So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first thing. We tried to make this presentation organized so that you can follow along. So this is our first kind of takeaway that we want you guys to walk away with: empowerment through accountability. And essentially what we want you to be able to walk away with from all of the information we're going to give you on this one is we want you to leave feeling confident and empowered to positively move forward in your college life. So we'll go ahead and get started with some of the basics for navigating the college environment. And they are here. We're going to elaborate on them, but I'll just list them out for you. The first is habits, establishing strong habits that you can commit to. Setting boundaries with all aspects of your life, not just in terms of school, but with your family, your job, your friends. Taking control. So a lot of times things are going to happen that are outside of our realm of control. Things are unplanned. I like to tell students life is still going to happen while you're in college. It's not like everything else takes a pause, right? So bad things in home life will still happen. Good things in home life will still happen. So our advice here is to make sure that you're taking control of what you can control. And then the last one, which is really the first one, but to look within. This really is going to this idea of looking within, looking at yourself is going to help you do all of these other things. Anything to add, Sonia?
No, I think looking within is going to be the most important, like, primary piece of the puzzle here, because without that, like, whatever works for other people may not work for you. So, like, even as I've been mentored by supervisors in the past, like, their styles didn't quite fit me, but I would take pieces of it and make it my own and integrate that. So that's what we encourage and hope that you'll consider doing today. So now this is a great time for this presentation. We're heading into, like, the middle of week 3 of the semester. So we just wanted to pose these 2 questions to you. And if you want to, write them down or take a picture with your phone. But we want you to really think about these 2 things. How'd you do school when you're in high school? Okay. How are you doing things in kindergarten through 12th grade? And are you doing the same thing now? Because more likely than not, unless you went to a rigorous preparatory school, the things that were able to help you get through K to 12 aren't going to necessarily work now that you're here in college. So often we'll share information with students about this 80-20 shift. So what is this 80-20 shift? When you were in kindergarten, high school, middle school, your teacher was responsible during that school day to cram 80% of what you need to know. 80% of that responsibility was them to share that knowledge with you. And then they would give you study guides. They would read aloud in class with you. You might do some worksheets and group work. And then you would spend some time outside of class, maybe doing a review sheet the night before the test. Okay. Now that you're in college, you're going to be taking that role. You're going to be the one who's structuring making your study guide. You're going to be doing the reading outside of class time. You're going to be the one who's responsible for your learning, okay? And your college instructors are now that 20% piece, which makes sense because if you think about it, each class that you're enrolled in, more likely than not, is going to be a 3-credit class. So that's 3 hours of instructional face time that you get with your faculty member each week, depending on the, if it's a hybrid, but they're still responsible for making sure that they get 3 hours of content to you. So you can see how that, 6 or 7 hours, 5 days a week has now shifted into a 3-hour window once a week with your instructor, okay? So clearly, you're going to have to make some changes if you want to be successful in this new setup.
So with that in mind, we do have some skills for your success in college. Go ahead, Sonia.
Okay, I got this. Even thinking about when Alexa and I started working on this presentation, we didn't do it last night. We sure as heck didn't do it this morning. We're talking weeks. We've taken weeks to kind of really be mindful and thoughtful about how we are going to share this information with you today. So you can see, we had to use a lot of these skills that are also necessary for success in college for us to be able to share with you this seamless presentation that's happening right now. And that involves all of these areas, okay? So making sure we're using logic, that we know how to prioritize. Executive functioning is something where you have knowing when and where to do what and how to do it, right? So putting all of those steps together, just like when you make coffee, if you forget to plug in the machine, but still follow all those other steps, you're not going to have any coffee, okay? So we want to make sure that we're helping you realize all of these things, all of these skills that hopefully you've been honing throughout your years in K-12 and that you're coming to college with are all falling into place, okay? But most importantly, really that communication and taking responsibility. I'll tell you what, the sooner that you start having conversations with your instructors, the easier it's gonna be for you to realize that you can be vulnerable and you're human and we make mistakes, okay? And as long as you have that ability to not just keep making those same mistakes, but to take responsibility and change your behaviors, that's really what's going to help you be successful in college. Because so often, and Alexa can speak to this as well as I, we have students who say, my instructor this, they don't like me. I don't like that subject. There's a whole litany of reasons, but at the end of the day is your instructor is there to provide you with content and information and the opportunity to learn and grow. And we want that academic transcript at the end of your first semester of college to be truly reflective of your ability and not all of the naysaying. So we want to help you understand how you can make that a reality.
Yeah, and just to add for this slide, a lot of the things that are here are not necessarily the things that you may have been taught or you may have been using in your K-12 experience. So that's why we put them here, and we encourage you, if you have difficulty with any of those things, critical thinking, prioritizing, anything that's on this list, reach out to someone who can support you, because what's going to happen is you're going to be in these courses and your professors are going to be expecting you to have a foundation or a basic knowledge of doing these things, of communicating when you're having difficulties. And I focus on that one because it's one of the biggest areas of concern that my students come to me with. They struggle and no one knows until week 7, week 8. And they're like, well, I never had the book. Well, I don't have a way to get to campus, but they've never said anything. And so one of my students, she quoted this in one of her reflections, but she says, a closed mouth don't get fed, right? So if you don't open your mouth, then you can't get the resources and you can't get the support. So again, if you see this list and you're like, oh, I don't really know how to prioritize. I've never really incorporated that into my learning, my education self, then connect with someone, connect with me, connect with Sonia, your professor. If you have a peer mentor, first year mentor, if you're a first year student, connect with someone to help you develop that skill.
Absolutely, because the last thing you want to feel is regret, right? And these missed opportunities. So this is that good time to exercise, because we're thinking no news is good news. Like, we think you're knocking it out of the park if you're not knocking down our doors. So please call us, email us, stop by the office if you see that somebody's around, because we can definitely help you out.
And if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or you're feeling a little bit uncertain, we want just to take this moment to remind you of a few things. The first is you are capable. Remember that you are a Penn State student because Penn State picked you. They chose you to be here. They believe that you could be successful. So don't ever doubt yourself. And if you participated in our LionSide Chat this summer, I did talk about imposter syndromes. Shameless plug. You can check that out on the LionSide Chat archives. But you are capable. You do belong here. And it's just a matter of making sure that you're developing those skills that we talked about on the previous slide to make sure that you actually execute and you can be successful here. The second thing is that you can be a great learner and not just a good student, right? So we don't want to just be students who can submit homework and do great on tests. We want to learn, and not just learn, but master the information in the material. We want to get beyond memorizing and being able to rinse and repeat or regurgitate information, but actually being able to apply, to understand, to analyze information. And you can do those things. And then the last one, which you're going to hear from us multiple times during this presentation, you are not alone. It can feel like we are the only ones experiencing this. We are the only ones struggling. And that sometimes is the reason why students don't communicate. They're like, no one's going to understand. But I promise you, you are not alone. In fact, the majority of students don't know how to study. They don't know how to do college, right? And that's okay. I like to tell my first year students, if you come to college and you leave the same person you started as, you're doing college wrong. You're supposed to be learning. You're supposed to be growing. You're supposed to be experiencing new things. So we just wanted to stop right there and just remind you, if this feels overwhelming, it feels uncertain and kind of scary, you're capable, you can be a great learner, and you're not alone. The bottom line really is that you can adjust your approach to learning. And when you do, you will ultimately experience success, but it's going to take work on your part. You have the resources, you have the support, but you've got to do the work. So for our folks who are like, okay, that's so cool, abstract, I can do it, you believe in me, yay, right? But what can I actually do? We're here for you too. We're going to give you some tangibles. So this is the big picture, and we want to essentially, the key here is to establish patterns, and you'll be able to see and then also control your future. So this resource, creating a calendar, this is actually available to you already on the Penn State Berks website. If you go to berks.psu.edu, you can look at the academic calendar and you'll be able to see a lot of the major dates. So for example, when semester starts, when breaks happen, when exams are, final exams, and things like that. But we also have these other very important things that you want to include in your big picture.
Absolutely. So you can put it when you have big projects, you have test dates, and you can kind of see where the peaks and valleys of your semester are going to be, so you can plan accordingly. Because if your schedule isn't full as a full-time student, you definitely need to make an appointment to meet with me so I can help you figure out how to fill up your schedule, because there's definitely things that you can be doing now to prepare for what's coming in the future.
So big picture is really important, but little picture is also very important. So the big picture is going to help you, like Sonia said, see the highs and the lows, the busy and the more relaxed times of your schedule. So it's important though that to get you going day by day, week by week, that you pay attention to little picture. So you want to be mindful of where you do and where you save your work. And we're going to elaborate a little bit on that in the coming slides. Sonia, you want to take point?
Absolutely. I think many times we often look how we actually do our work and get things done. So what we encourage students to do is follow something called the Pomodoro technique. It's basically breaking your work into 30-minute sections of time. 25 minutes of that is distraction-free work. What does that mean? No friends, no phones, no fun. And then you take a 5-minute break where you can check your phone, get a drink, have a snack. But then after that 5 minutes is up, you get right back on task and you keep working through your assignments. And basically, if you work in even if you have a 2-hour chunk of time blocked out and you're still working in those 30-minute time periods, then you'll never find yourself in the position to say to, your sociology instructor, oh, I never got to that because I was too busy working on my speech. And yeah, we're in college now. We're like, that's not going to cut it. Okay. And no instructor wants to hear from your mouth that their class was less important than some other instructors, right? So if you're working in these 30-minute chunks of time, you can work on your sociology, take a break, work on your speech, take a break, work on your work on your speech until you're done with all of your work. So that's a nice way for you to approach how you're doing your work. The weekly schedule is something that gives us a framework for all 168 hours in a week, okay? And it gives you, first you want to put your classes on there because that's what your priority is. You're a student now, and you need to make sure that that's accounted for.
Yeah, and you want to really, the weekly schedule is kind of like your overview. It's big picture in a sense as well. And so you've got to break down your weekly schedule into daily pieces or daily to-do lists. And there is an art to that. And I don't know if you're paying attention, but I have ART there on purpose. But there is an art to doing this. The first thing you want to make sure that you're doing is actually attending class, not just logging into Zoom and then turning off your camera and doing something else, but actually attending to class, right? Being fully present, taking notes, being prepared. I think in this environment where we are kind of hidden behind our black screen and the name or a picture and a name, it's very easy to not be fully engaged. So we just want to make sure that you understand, be fully engaged. I promise you, we have seen it time and time again. It's the foundation for a successful college experience. The R is for read. Read before class, read after class, actually get your books. For you, it may not be feasible and realistic to be buying all of your books, but there are cheaper options. You can rent your books. You can borrow your books from, say, a friend or the library, but make sure that you have access to your course materials. Get those codes. I don't know how many of you are here today without your My Math Lab. If that's you, this is your reminder to actually buy your My Math Lab because you are just going to get behind. It's a headache every semester. And then the last piece of this art of creating a daily to-do list is to take notes. Take your notes before and after your class, and don't just take them and then never look at them again. Take your notes and review them, adjust them, right? Try to adjust them as close to that session as possible, because the further out you get from that session, the harder it is going to be to remember any of the information that you learn. So we want to dive a little bit deeper into some of these concepts here on Little Picture. I'm very big on organizing electronic files. I wasn't always very big on this. I just recently realized that the systems, the tools that Penn State offers can be actually really useful, right? And I had a student recently tell me, wow, that was actually kind of smart, Miss Alexa. And I'm like, why, thank you. So some of the key things about creating organized electronic filing system, make sure that you're saving anything Penn State within Penn State systems. It's just going to help kind of create the separation between your school life and then everything else that's going on. So we have Office 365. If you're not using it, that's a problem because that's where your emails are, right? So you need to use Office 365. Gives you access to your emails. It gives you access to the online Microsoft Office products. So PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Forms, so many things. So make sure that you're saving all of your Penn State, all of your school academic stuff to this Penn State system. And that way you can be accessing it anywhere realistically. If you log into Office 365, today, Engage, whatever room, you can get home, go on your laptop and have the same access to that English paper that you're working on, sentence 15, right?
It's all in the cloud. It's all in the cloud.
It's all in the cloud, right? You want to be creating folders. So you can create folders in your emails. I'm not too skilled at that. Sonia's very good at that. I'm not great at it. But I am pretty solid with creating folders for Office 365 and all of my files. So you get to decide. It's up to you, right? We started this conversation by letting you know not everything is going to work with you. It's not going to be your cup of coffee. This phrase is like a cup of tea, but it's not going to be your cup of coffee. And that's okay. But create a folder, and you want to decide, do you want to have a folder for each one of your courses, which I do recommend as a first-year student, or you can create a folder that is just for the semester, fall 2020 courses, and you put all of your assignments, all of your lectures in there, and you can create subfolders within that kind of larger folder. The things you want to consider when you are creating folders are your courses, any employment things, especially if it's on campus, anything related to finances. If you're receiving financial aid and you've been selected for verification, you already know how annoying it is to have to resubmit those documents over and over again. Create a finances folder in Office 365 where you have all your tax return information or anything else that you're going to have to submit for verification. Any opportunities, maybe you are joining a research project with a faculty member. Maybe you are doing some sort of internship or something like that. You can put all that information in one folder. Clubs and orgs, sports. I mean, the list is really endless. You obviously don't want to have like 55 folders, especially not year one, and definitely not even by year two. But try to make it in an organized way. We're kind of moving down in terms of like specificity here. So we've got folders, which is kind of higher level, big picture. And then within the folders, the biggest thing for me is to make sure you're using descriptive file names. I know that your faculty will definitely appreciate this. I instruct 2 classes in the fall semester, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a document 33, right? And that's what's been uploaded. And so when I go to grade, I open it and it's just the file name is document 33. The student hasn't put their name in it. So I've got to go back to Canvas if I've downloaded everything, because it's just all one file. If I've downloaded everything, I've got to go back to Canvas and got to try to figure out. So for your own sake, but then also for the sake of your professors, use descriptive file names. These are just some ways that I tend to save my file. So put my name or my initials, the document, so whatever it is, and then the year, right? So A. Hodge, community conversation is what this is an abbreviation for, and then the year 2020. You can be a little bit more detailed and descriptive. It just depends on how long you're comfortable with your file names getting. For me, I don't really care, as long as I can get my information as quickly and easily as possible. This is
so
also
Miss Alexa, how long does it take you to make a file? How long does it, like if I wanted to create a file, how long does it take?
So to create the file, I mean, you got to do the work, but to save it in a descriptive name, it's literally 5 seconds or however long it takes you to come up with the way you want to say it. It does not take very long at all. The same with folders. Now with folders, it's going to take more than 5 or 10 seconds. But if you do that, especially at the start of the semester, if you just sit down before the semester starts and generate your folders, it's going to take you maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, depending on how involved you are and whether or not you clean up your files from last semester. But by doing that in one sitting at one time, you're setting yourself up for success, because that's one less thing that's going to stress you out when a professor says, oh, you uploaded the wrong file, and you've got to go back through your files, sift through all your documents 1 through 35 to open all of them to figure out which one was the proper file. So set yourself up. But the point that I want to make sure that you guys understand is that organizing your electronic files is an ongoing process that does require your attention and your review. So you might do this, set up your folders, rename your files, at the start of the semester, but you'll need to be doing that. And if you just set aside 30 minutes every Saturday, instead of going into like the black hole of Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, TikTok, I know some TikTok is, anyway, instead of going and spending 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 2 hours, I see you, I know who you are, then just give yourself 30 minutes to go in and clean up your files and make sure everything is organized.
Absolutely. It's a way to increase your efficiency too as a student, especially I'm thinking of emails. So every week you get a This Week at Berks email. So let's say you wanted to reference that today to click on the link to come to our LionSide chat. If you had a folder that was, that would house all of those This Week at Berks, then you know exactly where to go. You don't have to go into the search bar and tape it. Oh, no, wait, who sent that? When did it come? Oh, I don't remember. Like we're trying to really pay it forward to you as a student to share like how this initial minimal input in creating some organization and files is going to pay off dividends for you in the long run. And that way you can reserve that time. It's kind of like evolution, right? We're reserving these little pieces of energy to make sure that we're able to sustain ourselves as students, you know? So rather than focusing on that stuff on the back end or ever having lost a file, you know how bad that is, or where's that version? Oh no, wait. And you know, those aren't good feelings. We want you to feel good. And again, we go back to the empowerment and making that good cup of coffee. So this is one of those ingredients as a student to make sure that it's going to turn out all right.
So we also want to look at weekly schedules, and I'm being mindful of time, so I'm not going to go into super detail here, but the point, the takeaway is that you're making sure that you're considering your fixed responsibilities and your flexible responsibilities. Your fixed things are anything that's predetermined, pre-scheduled, either by you or someone else, job, class, labs, anything. You'll see I have study time here with an asterisk, and that's because we believe that study time should be a fixed thing, especially as a first-year student, especially for the first half of the semester. Commit yourself to studying at specific times of the day, specific times of the week, and treat it like you treat class or your job or a doctor's appointment. Whatever it is that you find yourself committing most to, that's what you need to do for your study time. So essentially the takeaways there: fixed versus flexible, establish your routines, and make sure that you're not just focusing on, I've got a weekly schedule, but incorporate other time management tools. You can use your Outlook calendar. I'm very big on using Outlook calendar. My students know I have it color coded and everything. Use to-do lists, sticky notes, reminders, alarms. Turn your phone on do not disturb, but use those other things, because creating a weekly schedule in itself is not going to cure all of your stressors. It's not going to cure all of your time management issues. You need those other things as well. You want to take this one, Sonia?
Absolutely. You know, and we do say like 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour that you're in. So if you're in a 15 credit semester, you need to be spending between 30 and 45 hours a week outside of class to make sure that you're successful. And that's going to vary on you. You know, have you historically struggled with some certain subjects? Is, you know, Spanish, if memorizing vocabulary, is that difficult for you? Like, are you going to spend more time creating flashcards? Are you going to have to do a little bit of math every day because up until this point you haven't recognized it as a strength of yours? Okay. So there's all of these things that you really have to take into account personally. But the important thing is, just like Alexa had mentioned earlier, is keeping, you know, some semblance of consistency, because once you develop that routine, and you know, we all have habits, bad ones and good ones, okay? But right now we really want to focus on building those good habits, because I think one of the things that breaks our heart the most is when we see a student who's gotten a starfish alert, letting their instructors letting them know, like week 6 or week 7, that their performance isn't cutting it and they may not be successful in the class. Then they feel like they're super overwhelmed. We want to give you the opportunity to really showcase yourself and make the most of your abilities. Like, as long as you can walk away from the semester knowing that you've put everything out there, that's one thing. If you truly don't have the ability, that's one thing. But if you just haven't applied yourself, that's a whole nother conversation, okay? So really it comes down to, again, your schedule and how it's a reflection on what you value. Right now, as a full-time student or even a part-time student, you have to value your education. And what does that mean? Probably less time with friends. Probably less time doing those things that we like to do and maybe enjoy, because right now it's an investment in your future.
We want to also just let you know that if this all seems a little bit overwhelming, even though it's more concrete and things to do, you can schedule a one-on-one session with Sonia. She coordinates the Learning Center, but she actually ends up meeting with students on a one-on-one basis to help them develop a proper time management schedule that is unique to the individual student. We're not doing cookie cutter kind of work here. We look at what the student needs, what the student's interested in, and set schedules that are realistic to them. So at the end of this presentation, we will have both of our contact information. So make sure you take a screenshot or write down our email addresses, and definitely reach out. We're here to support you.
Absolutely. I am the Vanna White to your Pat Sajak. You're going to be telling me like what needs to go up on the board, and we're going to do some troubleshooting, and I engage you in that experience together. It takes 30 or 40 minutes, again, upfront, minimal commitment. But then you leave my office and you follow that schedule for at least 2 weeks. And the students who I've worked with already, like I get really cool pictures of their schedules once they make them all nice and pretty looking in Excel, which Alexa would just love. And they say, you know, this is really helping. This is exactly what I was missing. Okay. So if you're not sure, start with the schedule. That's going to be the biggest piece of advice. If nothing else, even if you don't want to meet with me, your first year seminar instructor has access to me in writing, walking students through this process. So if you're not quite at the point where you want an appointment with me, there are resources out there to help you work on it independently. And then you can always meet with me to verify that you're on the right page.
Beautiful. So moving into our second kind of key takeaway point, our first is empowerment through accountability. So all of those things are things that you can do and should be doing to set strong habits and take control of your college experience. So that's a lot of inward, right? A lot of me, I've got to figure this out and I've got to take the action. This is our transition into developing and fostering positive support networks. And so we're going to be looking inward at first, but then helping you look outward to develop a network that is suitable for you and your goals that you have going on. So starting with inward, we think it's critically important that you know your values. And it can be hard, especially if you're a first year student, to really know what your values are. But Sonia has she's shared this many a times with me and with my students, that just look at what you're spending your time doing. Whatever you spend your time doing, that's a reflection of what you value and what is important to you. But just for definition's sake, your values are inner standards from which you receive the motivation to act as you do and by which you judge behaviors, both your own behaviors and the behaviors of other people. Your values are going to signify what's important and worthwhile to you. And we want you to understand that values aren't just limited to people. Values guide individuals, but also professions, communities, and larger institutions like Penn State, which Sonia will talk about in just a slide. And that we want you to understand that your values are based on many aspects. It's not just being a student, right? It's your cultural background, your socioeconomic background, your education, your religion. All those things kind of help form and shape your values. So we want you guys, the biggest takeaway here is that the work isn't necessarily in making that list, right? I value these 5 things in my life. The work, the difficulty is in truly living them, right? So if you find that you're spending time doing things that don't actually align with what you want in your life, then you're not living your values and you need to make an adjustment.
Sure. So values are pretty stable. They're a fixed component, we'll say. They might evolve a little bit, but they mostly stay the same until something, catastrophic happens, like a pandemic, right? So you might have seen this in your own life or in your parents or friends or relatives. It kind of like is a reset button. It's like, wait a second, what's really the most important in my life, But now, like that we're here at Penn State, our values haven't really shifted. They've just gone virtual maybe a little bit, but these are the things, these values are what define us as a community. And in my office, I have the values are always there looking at me. And even as I'm having conversations on the phone, as I'm generating an email to a faculty, staff, or student, or I'm talking, with some faculty, staff, friends about, things that we think about doing, I always go back to the values, because if you can fit your actions into those values, then they're supported by your organization. Okay. But if not, if you can't, if your behaviors and your decisions aren't being guided by these values, then it might be something you might want to reconsider doing or getting some more input and perspective on from your peers before you move forward. So I just use these: respect, excellence, responsibility, integrity, community discovery. Like, I think these are all things that are super important, not just professionally to me, but I think personally. And I think now that you're here as students, I always love sharing this. There's a page in your planner that's dedicated to the values too, because I really think it's so important, because this is what brings us all together. I think right now too, there is always that focus on diversity, but I look at the inclusion piece, and this is something that we can all come together to support, and that's our Penn State values.
Absolutely. And so if you find it difficult to identify your own values and you're not really sure, we encourage you to start with the Penn State values because you're part of this community. So once you've had the opportunity to think about what's important to you, think about what's important to the organizations and the institutions that you belong to, then you can really start to think about who you want in your circle, in your support network. And so we just have a couple of ideas about who to include in your support network. And so we start with the academic, your faculty and staff. So these are the folks that are, your faculty are the folks that are standing in front of you, teaching you things, maybe not standing in front of you, but here on Zoom, right? Or pre-recorded on Canvas. But anyway, those people that are teaching you something new multiple times a week. We've got faculty who are researchers, volunteer, business owners, authors. They're not just here to stand in front of you and talk to you about their subject. They do all of these other things. So get to know them and you can expand your own perspective and your own experiences by doing so. The same goes for staff, any support person on this campus. So basically, if there's an office for it, that's a potential network member. The Learning Center, hello, Sonia, right? The Student Support Service, that's moi, right? But we have career services, we have the counseling, we have so many. I'm not going to list all of them because then I'll forget someone and that's rude, right? But we have so many support persons and not everyone is going to mirror your style or your interests, and that's okay. There's a lot to choose from. Your academic advisors, your mentors, the tutors, anybody who's being paid by the university to support you is a potential network member. So the faculty and staff. We're going to transition a little bit to the outside of the academic setting, and the peers is kind of a mix of both. Your classmates, peer tutors, peer mentors, your roommates, your friends, right? You get to decide what level of that relationship can be or should be academic and what is more social. But what I caution you though against is having a whole collection of just fun friends, right? The fun friends are awesome and it feels good to spend time with fun friends, but your whole network cannot be fun friends because then you're not going to be doing very much or be motivated to do very much. And then the last piece, I feel that for us, Sonia and I, we value so much our families. So it would be totally negligent of us to just assume that your network has to be everyone that's a Penn State, that's Penn State related, right? So think about including in your social circle, your network, your support network, respected and other loved ones, right? So that could be family, whoever family is to you, right? Family doesn't always necessarily mean blood, right? Your chosen family, those people who have been there for you time and time again. It could be your coaches, maybe a coach that you have now for a sport, maybe you're part of our athletics teams, or a coach from high school or middle school or elementary school if you're still connected to them. Same for your teachers or any counselor. So there's a lot of places to start. You don't have to check off one in every category, but we do encourage you to at least find one strong person who's motivated and motivating, right? So they're helping you see your potential, but then also they're living their own potential as well, okay?
Yeah, we are like known cheerleaders too. So if you're like, I don't have me a cheerleader, like you come and you start working with us, okay? And I'm not going to ever yell at you, but I'm going to help you figure out what went wrong and how we can improve, okay? I've told students, you hold yourself accountable, but if you need that reminder of how to get on the right path, that's where you reach out to us.
Sorry, the formatting got a little bit wonky, so I just wanted to fix that really quickly. So then we talked about who can be in the network and your support network, but how to actually build it. It's pretty much twofold. We want to look inward and we want to look outward. So outward is kind of building this positive reputation around campus and any other situation that you're in. So making sure that you're on time for anything that you've committed to, work, class, meetings, appointments. Make sure that you're on time. Show genuine interest, even when it's not that interesting, right? But if you go to class and it's like that 8 a.m. class and you're just like, I am not feeling it, at least come in with something to write with and something to write on so that the professor knows that you're at least paying attention and you're interested in learning and knowing something from the topic. Share your goals. We do not recommend sharing your deepest, darkest passions with every single person, but definitely share your goals with those trusted folks who are here to support you and encourage you. and then demonstrate your ability. So just be great. Continue to be great when people are watching and when they're not watching as well. Just always be great. So that's the outward. The inward is really developing yourself. So not being afraid to ask for help, and it can be difficult, but if you find at least one person on this campus that you feel comfortable with, and you know they're not going to judge you, and you know that they're going to challenge you, yet support you, then that's the person that you start with. That's the place that you start asking for help, and then you can build your confidence and your comfort to expand beyond that person. Improve upon your weaknesses and develop your strengths. I think it's really easy to say I'm horrible at this and then just leave it, right? I've just never been that kind of student, or I've just never been that good at that subject, and just like, hands up, I can't do it. We do not encourage that. Get better at it, spend some time on it. And then develop your strengths. So you might be really, really great at something, and that's awesome, but there's always something to learn. We encourage you to be lifelong learners, and that's going to put you in positions where you can meet new people who are just as interested and just as great as you, and you guys can be learning from one another. So our
Excellent. And we're going to wrap this up. Yeah.
Third category,
running out.
super, super simple. In our third category, you have resources. Go to the Berks website, come to any one of us. We've got you. We are here to support you. Sonia, you want to take that home?
And one of the things that I always remind students is we can be here, and again, we can be your cheerleaders, but you need to want it for yourself as well. How many times I wish I could have instilled my values and my motivation on top of people, and you just can't. So you have to really be mindful about why you're here, what you're doing this for, and what the end result is going to be, because it's really hard to lose sight of that. Like, how is this fill in a blank class really going to help me with my business career? Okay. A lot of students don't see those connections, but those habits and those day-to-day behaviors are what's going to help you be successful. So these are just some motivational, inspirational points. Okay. Because a mindset and a growth mindset and learning from what you're doing and really being vulnerable and saying like, hey, I don't know how to do this, or, hey, I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me again? Are going to be ways for you to really incorporate on this opportunity that you have as a college student. And like I said, this is an investment of your time and your money, and we want to make sure that you get a good return on that.
So in closing, we just have some thoughts for you, some key takeaways, and this is another point where you can be taking a screenshot or taking notes down, but we want you to definitely be considering the 80-20 shift and how you learned or approached your education in high school versus college. And if you're in the Aspiring Scholars Program and you're first-year students, then you know that you have an article to read related to that shift, and that we may, in theory, hypothetically, maybe possibly have an unannounced quiz tomorrow about it. But definitely be paying attention to how you approach learning and be willing to shift that now that you're in college.
And you definitely want to be organizing your life, and you might set up a system initially that kind of needs some tweaks as time goes along, but that's okay, because you have a starting point. Even with a schedule, you have a starting point. Okay, so those are the things. Make a couple of moves. It's not going to take a lot of time, and if it's too intimidating, that's where you reach out to me and I help you guide yourself through that.
We will also want you to make sure you've identified your goals, because they are your guide for your life, and once you've identified them, to make sure that you're actually living them.
And you got to connect with staff and students. And again, we're operating under that principle is no news is good news, and that you're just doing amazing. And that's not always the case. And that's, again, where that vulnerability comes in. And it's okay to let us know that you're in need of assistance, and we're going to provide you with all the support possible.
And just remember, a lot of these services, all of these services that we've talked about today are free to you, and they're at your disposal. A lot of the times, though, you have to be the person that initiates the action, right? You've got to be doing something, even with something that's maybe as simple as tutoring. You might think, I can approach tutoring and they're going to reteach me everything or help me solve this problem. You've got to come in doing some work, doing some sort of review, working maybe midway through the problem until you just can't figure it out yourself. And then that's where you go and ask for help. So make sure that you're using the resources, but make sure you're doing the work on your own too.
And we're just, again, like take home, if nothing else today, just make sure you communicate and advocate for yourself, and this is a big transition. It's probably something that your parents are struggling more with right now as you're in your third semester than you might necessarily be. But the sooner that you get started doing it, the easier it's going to be in every semester moving forward.
We're here to help. We are Penn State. And you
are not alone.
Are not alone. Yeah. So that is our information. We do have some references for you to explore if you want to take a screenshot real quick here. Whoop, sorry. Just learning more about remote learning. Sonia and Dawn, they created this awesome blog site. So definitely take a screenshot, check that out, Positive Mindset. And then the Learn Well projects that's talking about the 80-20 shift that, again, my students should be reading for tomorrow. And that's all we have.
Awesome. Here's your Q&A slide. And if anybody's interested in the contact information for these wonderful women to reach out to them, please feel free to grab that. And I'll put up our final slide in a few minutes. But at this point, I thank Alexa and Sonia for this really interesting and fun and energetic caffeinated presentation. And I really appreciate everything that you had to say. I am looking forward to reading about what my FYS students have to say about this, because they were required to be joining us today, either live or on the recording. So I'm looking forward to that. So I do want to invite everyone to go ahead and feel free to ask some questions in the chat. My colleague Ryan has joined us again, and he will be facilitating the Q&A. So please join us with any questions that you have.
Hey, Sonia and Alexa, how are you guys doing?
Good.
I will refrain from sharing my desktop because you will yell at me with my lack of putting things into folders. I use the search feature very efficiently, though. I took some notes on your suggestions there. So here's my first question. I actually posed this to my first year seminar students and also to a couple other freshmen in my stat classes. If they are a first year student and we're here now, this is week 3, so kind of like real time, in the moment type of idea. They haven't had exams yet, right? Maybe they had a little quiz, maybe they had one little assignment, and they're hearing all of this from us and from other people saying, you know, this is going to be different. How do they know if they're on the right track right now? What are your like real-time suggestions on week 3, right? Should they feel like they know everything? Should they still be going to the Learning Center? What does that look like during week 3?
So
I'll go. No, go ahead.
We're both like, I can start. So my biggest piece of advice is if you cannot teach it or explain it to someone who's not in the class, if you got a course, if you got material and you can't explain it to someone without stumbling or feeling lost and confused, then that's a sign that you probably need some more time with the material. And maybe you might even want to reach out for support, either by attending office hours with that professor, connecting with the TA or the mentor that's assigned to that course, or going to tutoring. So that's my biggest. If you can't explain it to someone else and they're following and you're not stumbling, then you want to get some help.
No, that's a great point. And I would just echo the sentiments. Sometimes we do have to go through that first exam to kind of really gauge, you know, how high that bar is set or how realistic our expectations are of ourselves. But most instructors have it structured in such a way in their syllabus that you could see like the impact or the opportunities. So you can make those decisions on the front end. But again, I think it goes back to like that schedule and that personal time investment, because even with tutoring, it's still, the tutors aren't going to be there to take your test. So you have to be taking that responsibility.
Great. And I would encourage, you know, I don't see too many questions coming in, guys. I know a bunch of you are probably first year students, so I'm sure you have questions. So if you're any of my students, start asking, put these questions in here. These two ladies, they have all of the answers. I'm telling you, I go to them for lots of my questions. Here's one that I'd like to pitch to you. And maybe just a short sort of, and this might be hard for you to make it in one sort of, quick statement, but what makes or breaks a student? What have you guys seen with the students who have been successful versus the students who end up not being successful in this path to, completing a 4-year undergraduate degree? What's the one thing that you feel like it boils down to?
For me, it's easy. More often than not, for me, I've seen very intelligent, very skilled students underperform, and a lot of the time it's their network. The people that they're spending their time around the most do not have the same drive and motivation as them. And so sometimes it's the student is afraid to fail, and so they're intentionally avoiding anything that's going to prove to them that they belong or can be successful or not, right? So they surround themselves with the people doing the things, and avoiding what they really need to be doing. That for me is an easy one. It's usually the network, the people you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah, and I would say as soon as you started asking that question, I was like, the ones that are all talk, like, oh, I'm gonna do it different this time, and it's all about doing, like, show me. Like, spend that time, come into the Learning Center. Let me see that you have a presence. Let me see that you're on the schedule, on my schedule, that you want to do a check-in with me just because you want to make sure that you're staying on course, which is something students can do. Like, you can meet with me once a week if you want. Again, I'm not going to yell at you, but I might say, do you see how what you're doing is directly contradicting what you said you are going to be doing or you wanted to be doing? Like, let's talk about that. So then I might refer you to counseling, because that starts to get into counseling territory. But when it comes to the deliverables and the schedule and the mechanics, that's where Alexa and I can help out.
I actually have a follow-up, Alexa, to your idea of, surrounding yourself with a network. So are there any suggestions that you have on how to connect, how students can connect with other motivated students right now, especially during, this remote environment? What are some ways that you can create a network of students who, if there's somebody out there that's really motivated, and what are some supports to connect with other students?
So I think the first piece is being open to letting go of some of the relationship that you have. And a lot of the students are afraid of, like, being fake, right? Where you were cool with these people in high school, but now you're coming to college and you're not cool with them anymore. So I think that truly is the first step, being willing to let go of some of the unhealthy or unproductive relationships that you have, and then be open to networking and connecting with people who don't look like you, who aren't interested in the things that you're interested in, but are as motivated as you. Right. And I think that is then the second piece that makes it difficult. If you're coming from an environment that looks nothing like Berks, whatever that means to you, then sometimes it's hard to connect with the people who don't remind you of home, right? Don't remind you of your family. Don't remind you of the things that matter to you. So to me personally, be willing to reach out and connect to the people that you wouldn't maybe normally do that with. And then also, you guys can be using the technology and using the resources. Yes, there are restrictions. You can't obviously come and meet with your whole class on campus, but use Canvas, send an email and say, whatever, I noticed that you're always participating in our Zoom session. I was wondering if you wanted to get together and have a study session on campus or on Zoom, and let's talk about what's going on. That's one way you can do it virtually. If you have a course in person, look for the people who are sitting up front. Look for the people who are raising their hand. Look for the people who are asking questions before and after class, staying to talk to the professor, and start to be with that person, not to like become that person, but just to be around that kind of energy. Those are my suggestions.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's what I told my students. I had a couple people ask me, my students, I said, look at the people who are having their cameras on during class. Look at the people who are asking questions. I mean, those are the type of people, if you want to be, successful, surround yourself around. Hopefully you are one of them, but surround yourself with those people. And, as a faculty member, I remotely have been calling on people and they won't respond. That's probably not the type of person who you want to necessarily, surround yourself with and ask, to, study with. We actually have a comment or a question coming in from one of our participants here. It's really give you sort of a background. Maybe I'll throw this to you, Sonia. It's kind of more around maybe academic freedom. So the question is really worded in such that one of the professors that this student has isn't really using the same grading guidelines as other professors who might teach the same course. So what are your suggestions just in terms of possibly differences in grading from professor to professor?
So here's the thing. We're in week 3. Drop ad is over. This is kind of a stay in your lane situation as far as I'm concerned. Now, you do have the ability, if you're not satisfied with the way you're performing, or the way that the class is going, to always take yourself out of the class, right? But we want to avoid that. Like, we want you to maybe take this as an opportunity, as a challenge. Okay, you knew what you were getting into when you accessed that syllabus, and once drop and add is over, there's an implication. There's a financial one, potentially, there's an academic one. And I think this is going to give you the opportunity for that growth and that growth mindset. Okay. Because regardless, it doesn't matter what's happening in those other classes. Like, you're kind of committed. Okay. So now this is going to give you that chance to kind of see your ability to kind of navigate the situation. Okay. And one of the Penn State values, sorry, I'm going to throw this in quick, but integrity is something like doing the right thing even when nobody else is looking. I say that to my kids all the time. And I'm like, this is one of those opportunities for you to kind of be pushed, or to push yourself. Okay. So, next time, I think it could be more of a cautionary tale. Like, okay, we know the next time to look at these things before I sign up, because if they are grading differently than you thought you were going to be graded, or you want to be graded, then take that class with the other instructor.
And I would just add there too, and Sonia said this, stay in your lane, right? So I caution you, not just for the grading, because professors don't have to grade the same way just because they're teaching the same course. They have that freedom to instruct the course that they see fit and that suits their teaching and learning style and experiences, but then also to grade and assess students in the way that they see fit. But my caution here is not to be consumed with the opinions and the ideas of what other students are doing. And I've seen it time and time again, where I know the real story as to why maybe a student is struggling in the class because I've met with them one-on-one. But when I hear other students talk about, say, that student and a professor, obviously I can't say anything about what I know, but the student maybe has misrepresented or changed the story just a little bit. So I just say that because obviously you want to be talking with your peers, you're trying to kind of navigate this space together, but just take everything with a grain of salt. I've seen students say, I'm doing horrible in this class, and they're actually doing really well. And then the opposite, because they want to keep up with whatever everyone else is doing. They want to complain and commiserate, or they want to celebrate just the same as everyone else. So just be a little bit mindful of that.
So I know we're
and if we didn't get to I know,
yeah,
I see
we're
that
almost out of
question
time, but one last question. What do you recommend for nervous students who are not comfortable, in the group setting?
Send me an email, scd14@psu.edu. I can do role playing with you. I can practice. I can help guide you through that kind of stuff. That's exactly what I'm here for. So please, I wanted to make sure I saw that and acknowledged it, but shoot me an email and we'll work through that together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Alexa. This has been a really great, informative, highly caffeinated, I'll go back to that, presentation today. And I'm really excited for the information that you both shared. So, and excellent questions to our students out there. And I'm making a mental note to maybe do an academic freedom LionSide chat in the future. So that might be an interesting topic to pursue. Thank you to everybody for joining us for our LionSide chat. As you click out of the webinar, you'll receive access to a survey. Please take a few minutes to complete the survey and let us know your thoughts about today's chat. Offer some ideas for future chats if you want to as well. You're encouraged to reach out to us via email, and we hope to hear from you, and keep checking our website. Our next chat is going to be Monday on the 14th of September. Are you smiling behind that mask? Human communication in the age of COVID. We also will be having our yearly Constitution Day celebration over the LionSide Chats webinars next Thursday the 17th at 7 p.m. So be sure to come back and meet with another faculty, staff, and student from Penn State Berks as they share their experiences. And until that time, stay safe, Berks and beyond. Signing off until our next chat. This has been Penn State Berks LionSide Chat. Bye-bye.